All right, students, we are going to begin with our next video lesson. This is the first section of Chapter 7, and we'll be looking at equations through the most of this section, looking at more complex equations than we've seen before. So just kind of a reminder, we have seen one-step equations at this point already. And you maybe have been exposed to a few two-step equations, but in this chapter we're going to see two-step, multi-step, which means more than two, like 3 or 4 steps. You'll see equations where we have more than one variable. You'll see some inequalities again, and different things like that. But let's just get started with this first lesson. So, two-step equations imply that there's going to be the two things we have to do to solve. So we have two numbers over here, and so this is helpful, at least the first time. Some of you already know what to do, but I just like to draw a line when we're doing this first example right underneath the equal sign. I do that because the question is, what numbers do I need to get rid of? A lot of people say, I need to get rid of the x. No, we want to get the x by itself. So we don't want to get rid of it. We want it to stay there. We just want everything else to move to the other side. Well, if I move it, I can't just go and put -5 over here. Not allowed to do that in math. So if you remember, we can add 5 to cancel out this -5. And this 4 is saying 4 times x. So you can divide by 4 to get rid of it. The question is, which one do we get rid of first? Now, since we're using what they call inverse operations, which is the opposite, so when it says subtract, we add, when it says multiply, we divide, and vice versa, we're basically working backwards. So you can look at it like this. You start at the back of order operations. Like if I knew what this x was, I would multiply it times 4, then I would -5. In order to remove these, we have to do it the other way around. We have to get rid of the -5, then get rid of the times 4. So what we do first is we are going to add 5 to both sides. We add 5 to both sides because it is an equation and you have to keep it balanced. You don't want one to be more than the other. So we end up with 4x is equal to, and you end up with 19 plus 5, which would give you 24. Now, it is very helpful to write it down like this. Now, once again, two-step problems are not very complicated. You might be able to do this all in your head, but please listen to me when I tell you, you need to get used to showing your work like this. Show one step, write it down. Show the second step, write it down. You're done. Do it this way, because once we get to multi-step equations, especially when we get to them when they have bunches of variables involved, and when we get into the factoring of, when you have to factor these types of problems later on, you're going to want to write it down, because if you don't, you will lose your place. So get in the habit of writing it down. I'm requiring that you solve it like this, okay? Just get used to it. You need to trust me. So now we have this. I'm going to copy it down again because this is where we got here. Okay, so we add the 5, we get here. I'm going to copy this down again because now I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. So you see, that's my next step. So I divide by 4. This gets x by itself, and it equals 6, and that's our answer. That's how simple it is right there. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but equations have a really nice thing about them, and this whole chapter is basically just equations, so you guys should use this ability in this section. But you're allowed to take your answer, and plug it back into the original problem to see if it is the correct answer. I'm going to show you with this first example what that would look like. Now, when you plug it back in, it's almost like you're evaluating when we've done those problems before. So you use parentheses. So you take the 4, parenthesis, 6, close parenthesis, minus 5 equals 19. So after we get done doing the math here, we should get 19. If we don't, then we have the wrong number and we need to go back and find out what we did wrong. So 4 times 6 is what? Well, 4 times 6 would be 24 minus 5 equals 19. 24 minus 5 is 19. 19 equals 19. Yay, you see? We have done it correctly. So that's just a way you can go back and check your work to make sure you've done everything right. Now up here, number 2, this says b divided by 3 plus 13 equals 11. So I would originally divide by the 3 first, then I would add the 13. But remember, we're working basically backwards, so we have to get rid of the 13 first. If you want, some people find it helpful, again, to draw the line there. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but if it helps you, do it. Nothing wrong with it. It's just done. So we're going to minus 13, okay? You end up with b divided by 3 is equal to, what is it going to be equal to? Well, if you subtract this, you end up with negative 2. Now, in order to get rid of the 3, now we're going to have to times by 3. In order to get rid of, not negative 3, but in order to get rid of the divide by 3, we times by 3, both sides. And you end up with b is equal to negative 6, okay? So you get negative 6 as your answer. All right, next example. Here we have negative a is equal to, or plus 4 equals 11. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the 4. So we're going to say minus 4. We need to copy down everything that's right here. So I still have a negative a. I haven't done anything to change that. Equals, well, 11 minus 4 would be 7. Okay, so the question now is, what can I do to get a by itself? Because a is not by itself, it's still got that negative out front. So if you think carefully, what can I do to get rid of this negative? Well, what number is always understood to be in front of a? If you don't see a number, it's an understood what? 1. Well, since there's a negative symbol, it's an understood to be a negative 1. So that's like saying negative 1a. Right? Like this. Negative 1a is equal to 7. Well, what happens when a number and a letter are touching? It says to multiply. So what could you do to get rid of this? You could divide. So we're going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. So if we do that, we end up with a is equal to, what's 7 divided by negative 1? Negative 7. And you could plug this back in and you would find out that you get the right answer. So this is the correct answer there. All right, next example here. This one's a little tricky because students see this and they go, wait, what's going on here? It says 8 minus x. 8 minus x equals 17. This is a tricky one, but it's not impossible to solve. Once again, we're going to treat this, it's helpful if you kind of almost like add the opposite. You could think of it like that, or you could just add the opposite. Really is the easiest way to see this. So if you add the opposite, you'll notice that this is actually 8 plus negative x. So what do we need to get rid of first? We need to get rid of this 8. It's positive, so we're going to subtract. Even though you don't see a symbol out in front of it, we're adding. It's positive, so we just need to subtract. Okay? So we end up subtracting, and you end up with negative x is equal to, and you get, what do we get, 9? Yeah, 9. And so now we need to get rid of the negative symbol. Again, we could just divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and you get x is equal to negative 9. And voila, it's as simple as that. So those are two-step problems. We're about to take a look at multi-step problems. So if you're running a room, you might need to flip the paper over. If you look back over anything or put question marks by something, please do so. All right, multi-step problems. Once again, not that much more different than what we've already done. So solving multi-step problems is section 7.2. We're going to look at 3 examples, and then I might give you another one to try on your own. All right, let's try these. So here we have m plus 3m minus 7 equals 21. Now, you notice we have 2 variables involved, and this throws some people off. They go, oh no, I don't know what to do. But actually you do. You actually have all the knowledge you need to solve this problem if you think about it for a moment. If you want, you could even right now pause the video, try to solve this problem on your own, and see if you get the right answer, and then push play and find out. So I actually challenge you that if you think you can solve this, try it on your own, and then push play to see if you get the right answer. But here's what you would do. You would add the m with the 3m. This is understood to be 1m. Remember, no number there, it's understood to be 1. So you have 1m plus 3m. You would get 4m minus 7 equals 21. Now we've turned this supposedly multi-step problem into just a two-step problem that you've already solved one like this before. So now we're just going to add the 7. Add the 7. You get 4m equals 28. We now have to divide by 4. Divide by 4. Okay? So you get m equals, what do we get? M equals 7. Voila, and there is your answer. Pretty simple, right? All right, next, once again, this is a multi-step problem because it involves more than 2 steps. So once again, you also know everything you need to know to solve this problem. So once again, pause the video if you want, try yourself, test yourself, see if you can do it before I show you the answer. For those of you that are like, I don't have any clue what to do, just keep watching the video. I'll show you right now. All right, so if you notice, you got number touching a parenthesis and you've got multiple things on the inside. We can distribute this too. So we draw our arrows. It is helpful to draw the arrows. And maybe you want to draw those arrows just like I've recommended in the past. Maybe you want to do these like plus 7s and then divided by 4s. Maybe you want to go back and use a highlighter or a different color pen or something just to make it stand out that this is what I did to the problem. That these lines were already there, those lines already there, and you know, I did something to use the pen to kind of show what you did. So you can use a pen or highlighter to make those stand out more. So you do that and you end up with 6x plus 5. No, because you distribute to both of these things. So you don't get 5, you would get 2 times 5. Well, 2 times 5 is 10. So we have 6x plus 10 is equal to 28. Now we didn't distribute it over here, so this is still 28, okay? So don't go and change to 28 or anything. Now we need to solve this, and look, it's a two-step problem. So now we can just subtract the 10, and we end up with 6x is equal to, well, 6x happens to equal 18. We would then divide by 6. Remember, I recommend writing the minus 10 and the divide by 6 right here with either write it in pencil and highlight it, or write it with a different color pencil or pen so it stands out. And you would end up with x is equal to 3, number 3. There you go. Okay. And you can space your stuff farther apart. If your stuff's getting cramped, maybe space your stuff farther apart or use your space. You know, make sure your notes are neat and clean where you can read them, okay? You have the advantage to take a little bit more time because you can pause the video. I can't pause and, you know, change stuff right now. Sorry, I don't have movie magic abilities at this point. Moving on. Now, people see this and they get freaked out because they're like, oh, what do I do? Because they're confused. But remember, you can always draw the line to help you see, okay, I don't need to worry about the 4. The 4 is okay. He's by himself. I need to get rid of these other numbers over here. So that's what you need to focus on. So work on this side. Yes, it's flipped. Now, some people find it easier if they just go ahead and flip it back. And, you know, that makes it easier for them. I don't have a problem either way, so I'm just going to solve it like this. Once again, number touching parenthesis means I need to distribute. So I'm going to distribute. So I end up with 4 is equal to negative 3m, because negative 3 times m, negative 3m, minus negative 3 times 6 would give me negative 18. Now, if you notice, we have a negative negative. Now, what that's going to cause is it's going to cancel each other out, so you end up with negative 3m plus 18. It is important to do all of these steps first before you start on the actual solving part of it, okay? Do the work that can be done before. Basically, you simplify this side and then solve, okay? You can look at it like this, like simplify it, then solve. So we've simplified it as far as it'll go. Now we get rid of the stuff we don't need. We don't need that 18, so we're going to minus 18 from both sides, okay? So subtract 18 from both sides. You would end up with negative 14 is equal to negative 3m, okay? So now I would need to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. So I would have m over here by itself, and a negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. And 14 divided by 3, well, 3 goes into 14 a total of 4 times, with a remainder of 2 that you put over the 3. If you want to do the math over to the sides, you can, but this is basically an improper fraction that I've turned to a mixed number. You could get the decimal answer, but I always find the fraction answer easier. You could get 4.66 repeating, but I don't see a need to do that. I just get the remainder, put it over the divider, voila. And remember, it does turn to a positive number because of the negative. Now, I will do one last thing to finish this up, because when you do write your answer, it is better to write m equals 4 2/3, because we want to know what m is. We don't necessarily want to know that this is m. I want you to say m is this. That's why you need to put the variable first, okay? Well, I know that was a fairly long video, but, not difficult math. So, go over these again, look at them carefully. Challenge yourself by maybe making up your own problem, solving it, and then doing the check, okay? That would be a good idea to make up your own problem, because we will get into a point where we might do some of those in the future. See you in class. Bye-bye.